Hey guys, so welcome back, and we have a quick update on the Blue House's response. And so in Korea, we call the presidential office the Blue House because it has a really cool blue tile on the roof, and it's called 청와대, which is essentially like blue in the name. And anyways, they had a very lukewarm BS response to about the 500,000 people who signed the petition to bring some sort of real action on the investigation. And in their response, you know how sometimes they say it's sort of like a BS. You know, like sometimes when you answer a question on a test and you just repeat the question, well, that's essentially what they did. They repeated what the police have said. They said that there was a very thorough investigation. They repeated essentially all of the facts that the police said, like, oh, how many teams that were sent out on this case, how long the investigation was. And they really pinpointed the fact that there was no criminal connection and that there's nothing more. Now, they didn't really say anything about, so what about the main subject? The main subject of the investigation, Son Jung Min, and what happened to him? Hello? What about SJM? What about solving the mystery of SJM and ensuring that if this happens to any other child or adult or grandma or grandpa, that there would be something satisfactory that would happen. You know, it's sort of like, let's bring it back to the Blue House. It's sort of like holding a presidential election, and there's this whole investigation, and they say, there's no election fraud, there's no election fraud. And then everybody asks, so who won the election? And they were like, well, we don't know. I don't know. We don't know who won. I mean, I guess we'll never know. But there's no election fraud. I mean, come on, guys. We have focused on the wrong parameters. We are trying to figure out what's really important here. And what is really important? One person's culpability or the safety of an entire nation. If this happens to any one of us, are we safe? Or are we just going to focus on whether this one guy was guilty or not? And apparently, like we've said, he wasn't even an official person that the police were asking whether he was guilty or not. So why are we wasting all of these teams on this guy who wasn't even being investigated to begin with? We are investigating, like we said, what happened to SJM. Okay, so that was an update. We'll have more as we get more details on that, and I am predicting we will have a response from SJM's father on his blog, so I'll get you some details on that as it comes in. The related note and the main topic of this episode is the main contender for the Democratic Party in the presidential election that's coming up for South Korea. And I know if you're around the world, like, why would you care about an old Korean man running for president of South Korea? Because I think it really does relate to all of these tragedies happening to these young men of South Korea. All these boys that are dying. Why? Because of all of these horribly acting adults. And I know we're not supposed to like enjoy seeing people's dirty laundry, but why not? Because we do have to analyze the people who have access to, maybe we don't have super nuclear codes, but we have like nuclear codes by extension here in South Korea. This is some juicy dirty laundry of not so private recorded phone calls. Okay, so this guy is Lee Jae-myung. He's currently the mayor of a pretty big province of South Korea. It's the province that surrounds Seoul, and it's literally like surrounding Seoul like a donut. And within that province is a very high-tech, advanced new city named Seongnam, and he was the mayor of that town before he became the governor. So he's been this very progressive, up-and-coming liberal politician. He has built his reputation as sort of like the Bernie Sanders of South Korea. So on the whole, his image has been very positive, and he has run for president before, and he has really made a strong showing. And even now, even as I was researching this, and I was just like, dang, this guy, whoa, this guy, But even like the other day when he's speaking, like when I'm seeing recording, this guy makes a very good show. Very smooth, very polished, very well spoken. He looks like he comes from privilege, but this dude was like a factory worker. He's a rags to riches story. He is like one of those people where like under old Korea's, system of becoming a lawyer where you could just take a test, he went through that route, had to, I think, like drop out of school early, become a factory worker, then studied for the bar exam, and then became a lawyer. And then I think in 2005 he entered politics and rode the coattails of President Roh Moo-hyun, and then boom, he like made his political ascent. There's some rumors that maybe he aligned with some mafia people, and maybe that's how he kind of boosted himself. But on the whole, it was sort of like this rags to riches story. But then, of course, there's been some scandals along the way that he's been able to sort of manage, but lately they've been really popping up, and they're really bad now. Okay, so now that he is the front runner in the Democratic Party, and overall number 2, we went over the number 1 front runner the last time, and he's on the conservative ticket, and so he's number 2 overall, but the number 1 leading candidate. And his recordings that we're gonna go over are with his brother's wife and his brother, and he sounds so psycho. He sounds so abusive, and we're gonna put the subtitles, but instead of like effing B, I'm gonna put Facebook, and the other curse words you'll probably figure out. I'm gonna substitute because it's just so dirty and low class. You can definitely see the factory worker come out, and I think there is some sort of kind of a mental issue there that I think we'll talk about later. So let's go into some of these phone calls. So the first phone call is between Lee Jae-myung when he was the mayor and his brother's wife.
여보세요?
여보세요?
네.
형님 좀 바꿔주세요.
형님이 지금 전화 받은
Looks like
형편이
he's in the
못
car.
되네요.
왜요?
쓰러져서 약 먹고 있어요 지금.
몇 시인데?
아니 그러면 동생이란 분이 그렇게 일을 엮어가지고 하는데 나도 매일 설사하고 살아요. 왜 그러는 거예요? 도대체 목적이 뭐예요?
내가 뭘 했어?
네?
혹시
이름 부르지 마시고 얘기해봐.
나 이제 옆에서 빙글빙글 웃고 자빠졌었지?
뭐라고요?
남편이 지 어머니 지가 나온 구멍 칼로 쑤신다 했다고 소리할 때 당연히 옆에서 빙글빙글 웃고 자빠졌었지?
누가 그럽니까? 난 그런 적 없어요.
하는 짓을 와서 씨발려나.
누가 그런 소리를 했냐고요?
시발려나.
아니 3시간 동안 울면서 아우 네 우리 잘 하도록 해요. 아우 정말 아주버님만 믿어요 했던 사람이 누군데.
시발려나.
아유 부인 단속이나 잘하세요.
야,
아니 근데 무슨 목적으로 이러시는 건지 나 얘기나 들어봅시다. 우리 애기 아빠가 글 썼다고 그러는 거죠 지금?
시발려나. 내가 얘기하려니까.
예?
너 20년 동안 나한테 피해봤다는 게 뭔지 얘기해봐.
얼마나 동호 아빠가 하는 행실이 응?
뭐?
다른 사람들한테 상처를 줬는지 모르죠?
아니,
본인은 모르지. 본인은 뭐 내가 하는 말, 내가 하는 행실이 뭐든지 다 옳다고 생각했겠죠? 그걸로 인해서 다른 형제들이 눈치 본 적도 많고 응? 솔직히 말을 안 해서 그렇지.
녹음해서 공개해봐.
아니 뭐 녹음 안 해요. 아유 치사스럽게 설사 녹음을 한다 해도 공개 안 해요.
할로 니 진정 엄마 시발려나. 니 입구멍 찢으면 좋겠니?
도대체 무슨 정신으로 그러고 삽니까? 지금 최고의 자리에 성남시장 최고의 100만 시민을 아우르는 사람 아닙니까? 형도 하나 포용을 못하는 사람이 무슨 시민을 아우른다고 그러시는 거예요? 어?
야, 이 시발려나.
나는 너처럼 욕 안 해. 나는 너처럼 욕 안 해.
왜 니를
아니 이렇게 욕하려고 전화했어요?
칼로 쑤셔가.
정치가 이렇게 무서운 거야? 권력이 그렇게 좋은 거냐고? 응?
내가
얼마나 시댁에 가서 우리 욕을 했으면, 응?
이런 병
아이고, 병신 형수한테 왜 전화를 해? 응?
니한테 내 시발려나. 니 남편한테 했지.
Okay, so that's the ending of the first recording. So if somebody like that is running for president, what do you think is going to happen to the children of South Korea? And what do you think is going to happen to the way that the governments are run, and whether people can easily get bought off or not, or whether there is peace and harmony within homes and societies? Oh gosh, that was horrible. So what it seems like is that there is tension between the two brothers. And of course, at first, we're going to go over that. There's a second conversation that really solidifies the fact that the mayor and basically the politician is the aggressor. Because at first, I'm always very suspicious. Perhaps it was I was like, well, maybe it's the wife, because maybe she's the smooth operator. But the way that it seems, because there's also a conversation between the two brothers. And when they were referring to the whole thing about for 20 years, like he's had to suffer, it seems as if that this politician does fit the classic profile of the narcissist, maybe even the narcissistic psychopath. And essentially that does fit even his biographical profile. Usually there is some sort of instability within the childhood. So if there was like a lot of poverty, and then there was some sort of lack and shame with the way that they were probably brought up, and then if he was the younger one there, and if he was like the favorite child from the mother, there also has to be some sort of excess along with poverty, because it seems as if even though he's the younger child, he is treating his older brother as if he has much more power over him, even at this age. It is very shocking that he talks to his brother with such vitriol, and he curses at his brother, which is extremely rare in Korean society. You'll ask anybody, I mean, if you are Korean, please tell me, in any situation, especially, at this age when they're like over 60, when do these men, curse at their own brother, especially if, he's hyungnim, like if he's like older? And it seems as if there was some sort of conflict where the mother favored the politician. Anyhow, so then also like for 20 years, it seems as if the older brother was the punching bag for the politician. And it seems as if, like, you know, that brother, the older brother, fits the profile of probably like the codependent guy, the self-sacrificing guy, the guy that is, you know, kind of like, in a positive way, the emotional giver, which probably attracted a very strong wife that can put up and stand up to this politician, which he doesn't like. And so she is, even though she's saying she's suffering, at least she can be an opponent to this man. And she's even had press conferences. So for this conversation, I was also like, this can't be real because this man is so smooth and this man doesn't like talk really well. But then she went publicly, press conference, said it was real. He even acknowledged it on the campaign trail, said it was real conversation. He talks like this. He calls them up. Let's look at the second conversation. It's much shorter.
여보세요. 조사 받고 가냐, 이년아? 여보세요?
왜 전화하세요?
조사 받고 가냐, 이 나쁜 년아?
지금 형사한테 뭐 하는 소리입니까?
아이고,
아니
형님이
위아래도 없어요 거기는?
니네 어머니 칼로 쑤 죽인다는 년이잖아.
아이고 말도 안 되는 소리를 맨날 이렇게 쥐어대더니 아주 소설 쓰시네 맨날.
병신 같은 년. 이것도 공개해라, 녹음해가지고. 칼로 쑤시니까 좋더냐?
아이고 좀 약 좀 잡수셔야 돼.
빨려나.
이제 저한테 전화하지 마세요. 끊을래요.
너한테 아니, 이년아. 원장님 바꿔봐. 미친 새끼.
Okay, that is very disturbing. So you can see in both of these conversations, he has this fixation with knives, cutting people, stabbing people, and especially in regions of the female genitalia, like in the biscuit region. And that is also one of the characteristics of the narcissist. There is some sort, in a male narcissist, there is some sort of animosity towards the mother figure, a female figure. He also seems to have some sort of fallback in terms of the way he argues to keep saying, like, you're the crazy one, you have some sort of mental illness, when it apparently seems as if he probably does. And in fact, he was accused of trying to get his own brother institutionalized against his brother's will into a mental institution. Now, these are both very old school ways of fighting, with the knife, with the way that he's talking about, I'm gonna stab you and, like, you know, rip you apart. Like, remember from Sky Castle, like when the mother of the main character, like, you know, who, you know, is the fraud, where she like pretends she was rich, but she was, you know, almost kind of like, you know, the character, you know, the politician here, where like she came from nothing and then she kind of like got her way into high society. And it turned out that, like, when she reverted back to her past, she kind of spoke in this manner, like, oh, I'm gonna cut you. It's always like cutting with, like, you know, cutting you up and stuff like that, like through a body orifice. I guess that was the thing. And so that, and it was like a very dirty type of feeling, and that is the feeling that I'm getting from him here. And so it's like reverting to that kind of thing. That's a very old way. And then this whole thing about like locking people up in mental institutions, not just in Korea, but all across the world, that was a very popular go-to technique if you had problems, especially with your family members, or if you were particularly evil and if you wanted to get the inheritance from your parents or grandparents and you wanted to get rid of your competition within the family. You would lock everybody up in mental institutions and say they're crazy, they're crazy, they're crazy. That's why we got rid of those types of laws where we were institutionalizing people in mental institutions because it was being abused left and right. But still, that legacy is here in Korea where people do not want to see psychologists or go for mental treatment because that's the stigma. It's not, well, I guess there's still a pride stigma, but the stigma is more like, oh my God, like, is this going to affect me legally? Is this going to affect me, like, if ever I get like a divorce, like, are they going to take my assets? Are they going to take custody? It goes to that level because, and this guy who's running for president is still using this type of argument to try to deposition somebody else. So what is he going to do? Is he going to bring back this kind of psychological, like, locking people up if he doesn't like somebody? This is kind of scary territory here. There is a famous actress that he was having an affair with, an extramarital affair, and maybe that's not so big in terms of like the grand scheme of things, but it was a huge deal for some reason here in Korea because it was so public in terms of how acrimonious it was. He also accused her of being like a psychologically deficient liar. So he has like this go-to statement that he tries to defame people with in terms of their mental competency. In narcissism, there is a thing called projection. What you're feeling you have a deficiency with, you immediately blame other people with consistently. So if he's consistently blaming other people for some sort of like mental thing, that must mean he has some sort of concern about his own mental health. And if he consistently uses this metaphor of stabbing and knives, I'm concerned that his obsession with knives may be a problem. So let me play a little bit of the interaction with the brothers.
여보세요? 여보세요? 뭐 하는 짓이냐 너? 내한테 뭐라고 보냈는데 전화를 왜 하냐?
So the clearer voice is the brother, and I didn't want to play too much of this because you can't really hear the politician's voice too well. But you can hear the tone, right?
터뜨려 녹음 공개해. 터뜨려 녹음 공개해. 욕하는 거 공개해봐. 그래.
And so they're it's very odd because in public he's so well spoken, but in the conversation with his family, most of the language he uses is just curse word, curse word, curse word, curse word, not even really like a sentence even, and not even some sort of like any kind of other verbs or nouns. So they're just fighting a lot, and in this conversation though, the brother kind of throws out a lot of accusations about like things that could be offenses that he can probably go to jail for, corrupt dealings, and he's threatening to go to the media, say like, well, I'll just, send this recording off to every major broadcast station, you're done, dude. So there was a lot of acrimony between the two, and they also, he also talked about how like there's something about the mother. There's a central point in this where the older brother feels that the mother betrayed him and I guess sided with the politician. So there is something there that's quite goes deep. So anyhow, so that's the kind of like drama that is way too like ever present. And in any event, whether it is his fault or not, do you really want a president who has this type of phone call regularly every day? Because it does look as if it's beyond trying to resolve something. To me, this sounds like this politician needs this type of interaction. That after he's done with his day of all of this politicianing, which is probably not natural to him because he did not grow up this way, he's feeling a little bit strange. He needs a connection back to his past. And I'm getting the sense that he had a very tumultuous, violent upbringing, and he needs that sort of riotous, raucous interaction with some sort of family that connects him to his past and fight in that manner. Because when you hear the conversation, it almost feels like he is not connected to any type of topic. He just wants to say those types of swear words at somebody he knows. It doesn't even sound like he is trying to win something. And when you keep hearing what the wife of the brother says, she keeps saying like, what is your objective? What do you want? What are you trying to do? And I think she didn't get it. I think what he wants is essentially some sort of feeling, because like, you know, these types of people, these narcissists, they're doing this to kind of like drug themselves. And I think he just wants, in a dysfunctional, sick and twisted way, a feeling of comfort by going back into that time machine of when he was kind of like that little kid and being in a very dysfunctional household where maybe he's hearing and he's probably seeing his father chasing around his mom with a knife saying that he's gonna cut her or something like that, where he's like having to relive like some sort of like screaming, yelling, I'm gonna cut you with a knife and something that's something violent, and maybe that makes him feel grounded, like real, you know, not like so, you know, politician-y. But how crazy is that? Because, you know, you're gonna need a lot more than just a phone call to your sister-in-law, because I think his brother passed away. So now what you're gonna do if you're gonna be in the Blue House, there is no phone call that's going to be able to ground you enough. And we need somebody who understands human interaction a lot more than what this is suggesting. We need somebody who understands other cultures and ways of interacting and a little bit more sophistication with human psychology than somebody who seems to get ticked off very easily and is so like what are we gonna do? Like if he goes to like, you know, like where did Donald Trump go when he was playing with those big knives? I think in Saudi Arabia. I don't know, that might be a little bit scary. Like what if we have an international incident because this guy like might, you know, like knives too much? I don't know. So I think we really need to consider all of these facts, because I mean, who knows, like what if somebody gives him a steak knife set? Like we have to be careful now. And these are things that we probably don't have time for when we have like major issues like climate change and major issues like inflation and the economy and whatnot, whether we're going to cryptocurrency or whether we're just trying to save ourselves. Anyhow, I hope you found that juicy though. I think it's kind of crazy, right? Because, you know, like when you see like these, you know, Korean grandfathers, they seem so quiet. This is, sometimes they're like, not all of them, some, you know, a lot of them are kind of cool and rational, but sometimes they're like this. So I just wanted to share with you that sometimes even the ones that run for president talk like this. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.